Good morning. It is 11:20 a.m. on Sunday, April 22nd, 2018. I'm Christiana Ellis and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. Uh, it's also Sunday, which means I'm doing my rewatch of Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, and I've still got a little bit of lingering NyQuil brain. Got to sleep in. It was good. But I've just definitely been trying to fight off the lingering bits of this cold, and NyQuil works for the sleeping part, but then leaves me kind of messed up half the day. But this episode is today we're talking about episode 23, The Other Side of Good and Evil, EQUINOX. And this is a big turning point episode in the Laughing Man case. There's not really any action in it, but it's a big deal. It's very talky, but it's a big deal in the sense that it sort of reveals kind of the ultimate bad guy in a way. It sheds new light on the original Laughing Man incident and the motivations of our guy here. It still actually doesn't tell us what the Laughing Man's current plan is. It's interesting actually at this point whether we should even call him the Laughing Man, right? Because it's sort of confirmed now that the Laughing Man is like a persona that was created by people other than the original hacker. Because it was essentially what happens in this one is that the Section 9 putting together all of the different clues, in particular where the narcotics task force got that incredibly powerful armored suit, and just trying to connect all of the dots, come to the conclusion that the man who is currently the Secretary General might be the one who is at the center of this, all pulling all the strings. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence that would suggest he's the guy. He knows all of the other parties involved, for example. He personally profited from a lot of these schemes, but they don't know for sure. And so they're talking about the one person, the one other person who's involved in all of this that they might be able to get information from is the head of Serrano Genomics, who's we've been hearing about Serrano Genomics ever since the beginning of the season. What with the idea that they put interceptors in the eyes of the police was part of the original thing that resumed this whole investigation, and in particular. We learn that part of the reason that might have actually happened, in addition to being able to spy on the police, what the police were doing, is that the interceptors see what's really happening even when the Laughing Man is hacking people's eyes. If you review the footage from the interceptor, it shows what really happened, and so we can see, we can imagine that. If the Laughing Man doesn't know about well, I don't know. That's potentially a gap. Like, why wouldn't he have known? But what we see is that by reviewing the interceptor footage, we see that it's a missing piece that wasn't successfully hacked. Of course, it's also some of what we see earlier in the episode is also a little bit dubious because of the reveal at the end of the episode, which is that this whole thing is sort of half a ploy. But what appears to be happening midway through the episode is that the Laughing Man shows up again to kidnap Serrano again, just like the original Laughing Man incident. And we actually wonder at the beginning of this episode, because the end of the last one ended up with the Major getting a whole bunch of the Laughing Man's memories, right? So we could understand, like, well, why isn't that being brought up? And then it turns out, of course, with the reveal that what the Major actually does is use those memories to pose as the Laughing Man for this staged second kidnapping. And what they discover is the confirmation, first of all, that the Secretary General is the one involved, and that further, Serrano has essentially been under house arrest ever since to ensure that he doesn't blab. So Section 9 now has confirmation in their evidence of what's really going on, but the big problem that they have now is that that makes them enemies of a very powerful man, right? And so it's one thing to have evidence to support the idea that this guy is corrupt, but he is very powerful and has resources of his own, and also other powerful people invested in not having him go down. So that's potentially a difficult situation. It's also, I think, a little dubious how they procured this evidence, and it would probably be hard to make it hold up in court of law. I mean, it's one thing for them to be sure. Oddly enough, I feel like there's not as much of a long conversation to be had about this episode because it kind of just takes a lot of time to build to that reveal. But some of what we do get is confirmation, of some of what we've known already, which is that the original event of this hacker kidnapping Serrano, trying to persuade him that this whole thing of the suppression of the Mirai vaccine and the approval of these micromachine therapies that don't actually work, that was something that the original guy as a hacker discovered and was trying to persuade the head of Serrano to tell the truth, let everybody know. And apparently they had this whole 2-day argument about it, where the hacker was controlling his body so that he couldn't run away, but basically trying to just talk him into it. Like, I want to release you and then have you say what I want you to say, and tell the truth. And that's what led to the whole original thing, because he basically said, yeah, okay, I will. And then as soon as the hacker released him in public, he changed his mind, and that's when the hacker pulled the gun, and this was the whole original thing where the whole event that was caught on footage, and where he put the symbol in front of his face, and the whole original Laughing Man incident was an attempt to get Serrano to tell the truth about this whole thing. And then we also get confirmation that everything since that was supposedly attributed to the Laughing Man, all of this corporate blackmail stuff, was actually all just corporate shenanigans designed to enrich various parties and shake down the various companies for money. It was essentially all just corporate political intrigue, dealing with the corruption of this whole process of the various micromachine competitors. And that that's part of why the Laughing Man hadn't resurfaced, is he was just kind of in despair at how corrupt everything was, and the fact that they tried to blame it all on his original thing, and so he was kind of just like, that's where the whole he could become a deaf mute, avert his eyes from it all, and just this idea. But when it resurfaced with the whole interceptors thing, he just decided once again he was going to try to make something happen, and we still aren't wholly sure what that is. We recall last week he told the major, I'm going to do something, and I'll tell you all this information, but I want you to not try to stop me. And so now we see that Section 9 isn't essentially, they're trying to still pursue their own investigation. And now they've got confirmation that Secretary General Yakushima is the one, who's been running this whole show. But that's potentially a very dangerous situation. Anyway, so I think actually that'll do it for today. I'm still feeling a little bit fuzzy anyway. So next week, we'll continue with Sunset in the Lonely City, Annihilation, which is an ominous title, right? And I'll talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes.